So as for the Mets pivoting that so-called $10 million to the reliever market, the Mets have been linked to multiple arms over the past week. Joel Sherman of the New York Post reported that the Mets have been associated with left-handed pitcher Wandy Peralta. Peralta has spent the last 3 seasons with the Yankees, posting a 2.82 earned run average, a 4.06 fielding independent pitching, striking out 21.1% of batters across 153 innings pitched. The 32-year-old reliever is a hard-throwing lefty with a high 90s four-seam that tops 97, high 90s running sinker, hard gyro cutting slider, and a primary side spinning changeup. The Mets have also been linked to John Brebbia, a 2-pitch right-handed reliever with a high rising 90s fastball and a high spin action slider. The 33-year-old Brebbia has posted a 3.83 earned run average, 3.69 fielding independent pitching, striking out 23% of batters across 124.2 innings pitched. The Mets have also been linked to other relievers such as Hector Neris, Phil Maton, as well as other trade conversations including Kenley Jansen and Chris Martin from Boston. The Mets bullpen currently sits at 4 2024 locks, headlined by star closer Edwin Diaz, lefty side slinger Brooks Raley, joined by the offseason additions of Jorge Lopez and Austin Adams.
Peralta, I feel like he really fits what the Mets have been doing, mainly because he is a former Yankee. And it seems like that has been a pretty top priority for David Stearns. He'll try to bring in all of the Yankee free agents, so he definitely would fall right in line there. But
is he better than Chasen Shreve, though?
I would sure hope so, because if he's not, that'd be very alarming. But for Peralta, he would give something that, some people are for, some people it's not as much a priority, but obviously giving you that second left-handed pitcher, and it kind of gives you some more versatility as far as what you want to do with Brooks Raley. And that's what I like, is that I like having the flexibility that I could bring Brooks Raley into the 5th inning if the situation called for it. Like if Sean Manaea gives me, 4 2/3 innings, and then, I have a big out I need to get, then I could bring in Brooks Raley in the 5th inning, and then all of a sudden you're facing the lower half of the order. You can go to your other guys, whoever else it is that the Mets add. And then if that left-hander comes up again later on, I could go back to not could go to Peralta in the 7th inning. So again, I just like that it gives them options. Whether it's Manaea making the start or even Adrian Hauser making the start, you need someone to come in, like just not having Brooks Raley solely in the back end of the bullpen with Edwin Diaz, allowing him to kind of float around, I feel like would be more valuable for them as far as just kind of opportunities. But with Peralta, he's been a guy who's been solid the past few seasons, with the Yankees. Ever since leaving the San Francisco Giants, they've seemed to figure out something with him. And again, like we've said, we're of the mindset that Stearns has obviously done a good job evaluating pitchers, finding things that he likes. And, one of the other things I like about Peralta is that age, 31 years old. It seems like he's kind of, getting better and really finding himself as a pitcher. And for him to, just be consistent year after year, it's not something you could take for granted, especially when it comes to relievers, because we know it's always, like good year, bad year, things like that. So for him to string together a few good seasons in a row is not something you often see. And, being able, and, I know I made the joke about the former Yankees, but having some kind of New York experience, it is always a good thing. This way it doesn't totally take you by surprise. And I find that, definitely important for pitchers, guys who are going to be in high pressure situations out of the bullpen, these high leverage scenarios. Having a guy like Wandy Peralta, who's kind of done it a little bit, that definitely would be nice. I mean, he's gotten 4 seasons this year. He got 4 seasons last year as well. So he's even closed out some games too. So I also think having that in your arsenal is also very important, because like we've seen before, not having Edwin Diaz also have to do everything would also be nice, because like I said with Brooks Raley, do the same thing with Diaz. Okay, we need him to come in the 8th inning. Maybe we need him to come in the 7th inning. It's like, okay, well, at least, Peralta might end up getting the save when it's all said and done, or the 10th inning. Like there's so many different scenarios. So I'm definitely good with Peralta. I do think it'd be a good move for them. As far as, John Brebbia, however you want to say it, he's another guy who he's had, some pretty solid seasons lately with San Francisco. He's a guy who hasn't been as good. He's right-handed, so he doesn't give you, that lefty that's so important to some pitchers with matchups and things like that. Also made some starts and things like that for San Francisco since they try to be like Tampa Bay and do these, weird openers and things like that. So he's kind of been around a little bit. And just, I don't think he's quite this. He's obviously a different pitcher than Peralta is. So I feel like with what the Mets have right now, I think that Peralta would be the better fit. And that's someone who I would be looking at. As far as these other guys, I think Hector Neris, there's a lot of people in that market. I feel like he may end up even getting a multi-year deal. So I don't really see something that the Mets are pursuing. As far as the Kenley and Chris Martin thing, obviously Chris Martin, I'm all for. I don't care. He's the one guy who kind of is different than the whole, don't target older players, because he doesn't need to be young and throw 100 miles an hour, because this is a guy that doesn't walk batters, keeps the ball on the ground. It's something that he's just, like we said with Peralta, just literally year after year with Chris Martin, no matter what team you put him on, he's always doing a really good job. So I'd be all for him. Kenley, I try to be avoiding that. This obviously not the same guy. He's gotten worse as time has gone on. And I just think that, him coming to New York where he hasn't been before, and a lot of expectations would be placed under him. And I think trying to figure out, how do you use him as well, with Edwin Diaz, because, Kenley's going to want to close and things like that. So I would try to avoid that, honestly. I would rather just make the move for Martin, because I think he'd be a really good fit. He's getting paid, nothing crazy, honestly, by Boston. So he kind of fits their timeline and their budget, most importantly. So, there's a couple of options, and everyone kind of brings something different to the table. But I think out of all of them, obviously I like Chris Martin, but I do think Peralta would also be a nice.
One thing I do like about Peralta, and it's kind of like my deal with lefties, is it's either you get strikeouts or you get ground balls. I don't give a shit if you can pitch to only lefties, you can only pitch to right-handed hitters. I prefer you to pitch to both, because this is 2024 and nobody gives a shit about a lefty specialist. One thing I love about Wandy Peralta is that he's a hard throwing lefty. Again, this is something that you really need in the Mets bullpen, besides from Edwin Diaz, that being velocity. You have a hard throwing lefty and a soft tossing lefty who's got ridiculous spin, and Brooks Raley, who's nasty as they come. Peralta would be a fantastic add. And for those of you who are wondering why the fielding independent pitching is so high, it's because that is a metric that does not like walks whatsoever. And that's one of the main reasons why I look at it. But we have really seen David Stearns really do well, kind of just having a conglomerate of lefties coming out of his pen from different types of styles, whether it is in the rotation as your sixth starter who can go extra distance, or somebody in high leverage like Josh Hader, or somebody, who can just get you a ground ball if you need him to. And this is kind of falls under that category of different things that Wandy Peralta can do. This Brabia guy, I don't know much about him, but I know that he's like this hilarious personality that New York would love. Like, sure. That's not really what I'm looking for, but it falls under the category of better than Drew Smith, but not as better as you think it is. Like, I think that he's solid, but like, I don't think that it's like something that I would 100% pursue. And this is the guy that I would 100% get. He is like the main guy that I would take to bolster this bullpen. He also made 10 starts last year. I don't know what went on there with Brabia, but that was the thing or whatever. Maybe it's like something similar to what Sean Manaea was doing. I think these are good arms that they've gone after. I'm kind of glad they didn't get Brett Suter. Guys like David Stearns, he has had success under him, and he's been decent for a good time. But this pen, when I look at it, it needs velocity. It needs velocity so goddamn bad. And he doesn't have it. Like, I need strikeout stuff. I need, dazzling sinkers, hard sliders. That's what they need out of the pen. Which you should be mainly looking at is strikeout stuff for relievers, especially for this type of game these days. I don't mind having a crafty lefty, but he's got to get me some whiffs. He's got to get me those high leverage pieces. I'm not trying to see relievers sweat it out. Give me these 30 pitch outings and stuff like that. I need blow away stuff in that pen, especially from the back end. Even though we do see a few pieces that are there, we'd like to add somebody else. It all really just depends on 1 year deals or 1 year with an option or something like that. That's what they're going to do for relievers. Cause I would love to go after the Robert Stevensons of the world. I'd love to go after these other pieces to protect, the somewhat uncertainty they have with Edwin Diaz, because he is going to be coming back for injury. You never know. It's just how it is. I love Brooks Raley, and Jorge Lopez is a great bounce back candidate. We'll see how they do sculpt this bullpen, but we all know what our main goal is. We have said it 7,000 times at least a day. Push Drew Smith down the depth chart.
I like what you said there. I mean, at some point, I do want to see them try to get guys who are, like I've said before, have at least have a little bit of are established, have had quality seasons recently. I don't want all projects. I just think that, some of them are going to go your way, but not all of them are. So I do want to see them take at least a couple guys who, again, like you said, just have some stuff, because we've seen, obviously, with Houston this past year, or actually it was 2 years ago, more so, it really stood out, where literally a bunch of guys that not everybody knows, but every single one of those guys threw super hard. And it didn't matter. Like right-handed, left-handed, just every guy in there was throwing 97 plus. Meanwhile, the Mets have like a guy in Edwin Diaz that does that and nobody else. And he's obviously the best reliever on the team. So I just, like you said, I do want to see at least some other guys who have decent stuff, that have good stuff, that have high velocity, that you could work with and really try to make something out of. Because like I said, like with contact managers and some of these other types of pitchers we've seen them bring in, their ceiling is very limited. And it's like there's only so much you really could do here with the actual tools that you have at your disposal. So I do want to see them try to go with that different approach that you see the other teams do that have these really quality bullpens year in, year out.
Yeah, I mean, you just got to give me the best arms. You got to give me the best arm talent for relievers. You got to give me the best arm talent for a bullpen. That's how that succeeds. And, like you just said, with contact managers and things like that, they are just very limited in the sense where most of the contact managers they brought in here are in their mid 30s. So it's like, there's no ceiling there. You can't turn them into strikeout pitchers. And, they miss a spot, this shit's going to go over the fence. I mean, and we've seen that happen before. They've had those results before, and they've done it based off of track record, and it's come back to bite them in the ass. You need to see like some kind of upswing if you're going to bring in these experienced pieces. I think Wandy Peralta definitely goes into that category of like someone who's been proven, but it's not like this guy is the main stage reliever. He doesn't need to be the closer to be great. He doesn't need to be this to be one of the best relievers on your team. I mean, I think Ryan Stanek's the perfect fit here. Yeah. I think it's just so perfect. Whether you want to talk about, him, his personality in New York, or whether you want to look at just the overall stuff that he has, that is like just a perfect slot in that can be closer in a pinch and can get you strikeouts and could be your eighth inning guy and take a little bit even more weight off of Brooks Raley as well, and take some weight off of Edwin Diaz. If I'm going to get a backup closer, I'm not just going to get a guy like David Robertson who's done it before. I need someone who's got high leverage stuff to pair up with Edwin Diaz. What has happened with the experience the last 2 years, I mean, since Cohen took over, I mean, they've brought in a lot of guys who've just been based off of experience. It has not really sustained anything, and not many of them have stuck. The selection of arm talent, that's what bullpens need to succeed in the future for projected success. And that's something that the Mets really do need to focus on, is basically catching lightning in a bottle, what they have liked and what they will like in the future.